Commander HFY of the cautious Confederation prided himself on having seen every horror the galaxy had to offer. He had mapped nebulas that could sterilize a ship with radiation. He had catalogued gas giants with storms that had raged for millennia. He had even survived a staff meeting that lasted 6 standard cycles. But nothing, absolutely nothing, had prepared him for the abomination his sensors were currently showing him. "Run the diagnostic again," he chittered, his 4 eye stalks quivering with what he told himself was scientific curiosity and definitely not existential dread. His junior officer, a young Vexillian named Prince with Errors, manipulated the holographic display with trembling appendages. "Commander, I have run it 17 times. The readings are consistent. That planet should not exist." HFY stared at the blue and green marble rotating innocently in the display. Innocently. Ha! If genocide could take planetary form, this would be it. "Let me get this straight," he said, reviewing the data with mounting disbelief. "The atmospheric composition is 21% oxygen. 21%. That is not an atmosphere, that is a fire hazard waiting to happen. One spark and the entire surface would combust." "It gets worse, Commander." "Of course it does." Prince with Errors zoomed in on the atmospheric data. "The planet experiences something called weather. Violent, unpredictable chemical reactions in the atmosphere that dump liquid dihydrogen monoxide onto the surface. Sometimes frozen. Sometimes in quantities that can submerge entire land masses." HFY felt his circulatory fluid run cold. "Water falls from the sky. Regularly. This planet is being bombarded by a corrosive solvent and you are telling me this is normal?" "Daily, sir. Sometimes hourly." The commander had to sit down. Well, he had to lower his hovering sack onto the command cushion, which was the Vexillian equivalent. "What about the gravity?" 9.8 meters per second squared, sir." A moment of silence filled the bridge. Someone whimpered. HFY could not blame them. "That is nearly standard Confederation gravity," he whispered, which somehow made it worse. "A death world should have the decency to announce itself with crushing gravity. This one was sneaky. This one lured you in with promises of comfortable movement before it killed you with literally everything else." Prince with Errors continued scrolling through the nightmare fuel. "The surface temperature varies from 230 Kelvin to 330 Kelvin depending on location and something called seasons." "Seasons?" "The planet wobbles, sir. On its axis. So the temperature just changes. Chaotically. The inhabitants would need to constantly adapt to stop." HFY held up a manipulator. "You said inhabitants?" The junior officer's skin flushed a deep purple. "I misspoke, Commander. Clearly nothing could inhabit such a, show me the geological data." The hologram shifted, and HFY immediately regretted his curiosity. The planet's crust was divided into massive plates that ground against each other like the universe's worst jigsaw puzzle. Mountains thrust upward where they collided. Trenches opened where they separated. And everywhere, molten rock waited just beneath the surface, occasionally erupting in what the database cheerfully labeled as volcanism. "The entire planet is trying to tear itself apart," HFY said flatly. "Yes, Commander. And succeeding, in places. These readings indicate thousands of seismic events annually. The surface is in constant motion. Radiation levels? Lethal without shielding. The star it orbits emits broad-spectrum radiation. The planet has a magnetic field that provides some protection, but anything on the surface would still be exposed to dangerous levels of enough." HFY closed his eye stalks. "Mark this system as a Class 12 hazard. Quarantine zone. No Confederation vessel is to approach within 5 astronomical units. This planet is a cosmic horror show, and I want it in my reports as the single most violently inhospitable rock we have ever, Commander." Prince with Errors' voice had gone very small. The spectrographic analysis just completed. And? There are artificial compounds in the atmosphere. Manufactured materials. And I am detecting electromagnetic transmissions across multiple frequencies. HFY's eye stalks snapped open. He stared at his junior officer, then at the display, then back at his junior officer. You are telling me, he said slowly, that something lives on that planet? Prince with Errors nodded miserably. Something that builds? Something that broadcasts? Another nod. Commander HFY looked at the innocent blue marble on his display, at the swirling white patterns of those horrifying water-bombing weather systems, at the green and brown continents sitting atop grinding tectonic plates, all of it bathed in sterilizing radiation beneath an atmosphere that was essentially a controlled explosion waiting to happen, and something lived there. Get me the Galactic Council, he said quietly. We have a problem. The recalibration took 3 days. 3 days of HFY insisting the equipment was malfunctioning, 3 days of Prince with Errors running every diagnostic protocol in the manual plus several he invented out of sheer desperation, and 3 days of the sensors stubbornly insisting that yes, there was a thriving technological civilization on the Apocalypse planet. It has to be automated, HFY muttered, staring at the high-resolution imagery flooding his screens. Geometric structures covered the landmasses like a rash. Roads. Buildings. Entire cities sprawling across regions that should have been sterile wastelands. Ancient machinery, still running. The original inhabitants must have died out millennia ago, and their technology just keeps functioning. Commander, the radio transmissions are current. Real-time broadcasts on thousands of frequencies. Recorded messages. Looping signals. Sir, they are discussing something called a weather forecast. For tomorrow. That implies nothing. HFY's eye stalks were doing an agitated dance. Switch to visual spectrum. Maximum magnification. I want to see these so-called structures up close. The display shifted, zooming in on one of the continental land masses. A sprawling urban complex filled the screen, and HFY felt his blood run cold for the second time that week. Vehicles moved through the streets. Lights activated and deactivated in patterns suggesting active management. And then he saw a bipedal figure, walking down a street, carrying some kind of container. Enhance, he whispered. The image sharpened. The creature was tall, bilaterally symmetrical, covered in artificial materials that definitely qualified as clothing. It stopped at a crossing point, waited for vehicles to pass, then continued walking. Casually. Like it was not currently being irradiated by its homicidal star while breathing an atmosphere that could sustain combustion and walking on a crust that could crack open at any moment. They are outside, Prince with Errors said, his voice strangled. They are just outside. In the open. Unshielded. HFY pulled up additional visual feeds. A female specimen was traveling at high velocity using only her lower appendages, her respiration rate elevated, intentionally exerting herself in the hostile environment. Another individual had submerged himself completely in a large body of the corrosive dihydrogen monoxide and appeared to be propelling himself through it repeatedly. For recreation, if the biological readings of enjoyment were accurate. They are insane, HFY breathed. They must be insane. There is no other explanation. Commander, I have isolated one individual for detailed observation. His biosignature suggests he is alone in a remote region with particularly dangerous, oh no. What? What is, oh no? Prince with Errors transferred the feed to the main screen. A human male, mid-30s by the database's estimation, was trudging through dense vegetation in a region the thermal scans marked as tropical. The temperature was 302 Kelvin. The humidity was 90%. Dangerous megafauna signatures dotted the area. The human was wearing minimal protective gear. Fabric coverings on his torso and lower appendages. Boots. A wide-brimmed hat. That was it. That was all that stood between him and certain death. Zoom in on his equipment, Zwexthor ordered. The human carried a pack, some kind of recording device, and what appeared to be sample collection containers. As they watched, he knelt beside a flowering plant, utterly unconcerned by the insect life swarming around him, some of which carried venom that could kill smaller mammals. Audio, Zwexthor croaked. The human's voice crackled through the speakers, speaking in one of the 7,000 languages the analysis computer had identified. The translator worked frantically. Day 14 in the Amazon basin, the human said cheerfully, swatting at an insect the size of a Vexillian hand. The biodiversity here is absolutely incredible. Found 3 new species of orchid yesterday, and I think I am close to locating the poison dart frog colony I have been tracking. Poison, Prince with Errors whimpered. He said poison. He is tracking poison. The human, whom their database had identified as Dr. Marcus Chen, xenobotanist, stood and stretched. Through gaps in the canopy, the hostile yellow star poured down radiation. Chen pulled out a container and drank from it. Just drank the planet's water. Filtered, probably, but still. Temperature hit 38 degrees yesterday, Chen continued, apparently recording a log. Nearly passed out during the afternoon survey, but I am getting better at pacing myself. The key is to embrace the heat, you know? Work with it instead of against it. He nearly died, Zwexthor said faintly. He nearly died and he sounds happy about it. Chen began walking again, pushing through vegetation that released clouds of spores with every touch. The rainfall last night was intense. The tent held up well, though I woke up to find a tarantula sharing my sleeping bag. Big fellow, probably 8 inches across. Gorgeous specimen. The predator was inside his shelter, Prince with Errors said. The venomous predator was inside his shelter and he called it gorgeous. They watched in horrified fascination as Chen approached a tree, examined something on its trunk, and then reached out with his bare hand to touch it. Beautiful example of a bullet ant colony, he narrated. Named for their sting, which is supposed to feel like being shot. They are remarkably docile if you do not threaten them. Look at that organization. Absolutely magnificent. Zwexthor had to grip his command cushion to keep from floating away in shock. He is complimenting the creatures that can shoot him. With pain. Commander, should we attempt to rescue him? Rescue him? Zwexthor stared at the screen where Chen was now measuring the bullet ant colony with apparent delight. From what? He seems to think this is a pleasant outing. Chen wiped sweat from his forehead, took another drink of water, and smiled at his recording device. Another successful day. The rainforest is harsh, sure, but that is what makes it so rewarding. Cannot wait to see what tomorrow brings. The transmission ended. Silence filled the bridge. Get me everything, Zwexthor said quietly. Every transmission, every image, every scrap of data about these creatures. I need to understand what kind of species looks at a planet-sized death trap and calls it home. The Galactic Council chamber had seen many crises. Territorial disputes. Resource conflicts. That unfortunate incident with the Blorptian ambassador and the ceremonial gelatin mold. But the emergency session called by Commander Zwexthor had every representative sitting in stunned, horrified silence. Let me understand this correctly, said Counselor Vemthrax, his tentacles coiled so tightly they had gone pale. You have discovered a species that voluntarily lives on a Class 12 hazard world. Not just lives, Counselor, Zwexthor replied, pulling up the footage of Dr. Chen cheerfully documenting venomous insects. Thrives. They have a global population of nearly 8 billion individuals. The chamber erupted. Representatives from 47 species began shouting, whistling, or emitting pheromones of distress simultaneously. This is clearly a prison colony, declared Representative Kloxener, slamming 3 of her 6 hands on the podium. They must have committed unspeakable crimes to be exiled to such a place. Or they are being held hostage, offered Counselor Thimble 7, his optical sensors spinning anxiously. Some advanced species could be forcing them to mine resources in that toxic environment. Professor Quilmera, the Council's chief xenobiologist and the only member not currently panicking, rose from her seat. The elderly Morphasian adjusted her translation collar and spoke with the patience of someone who had spent 3 centuries dealing with bureaucratic nonsense. Or, she said, her voice cutting through the chaos, they evolved there. The chamber fell silent. Evolved? Vemthrax sputtered. Nothing could evolve in those conditions. The radiation alone would apply evolutionary pressure, Quilmera interrupted smoothly. As would the gravity, the atmospheric composition, the temperature variations, the tectonic activity, and yes, even the venomous fauna Dr. Chen seems so fond of. I propose we make contact. Study them. Learn how they have achieved this remarkable adaptation. You want to contact them? Kloxoner's voice rose to a screech. They are clearly suffering. We must mount a rescue operation immediately. A humanitarian mission, Thimble 7 agreed. Provide medical aid, relocate them to a habitable world, offer them shelter from that nightmare planet. Quilmera pulled up the footage of the jogger, the swimmer, and then a new clip showing humans engaging in something the translator labeled beach volleyball. They were hitting a sphere back and forth while standing on granulated silica, under direct star radiation, appearing to enjoy themselves immensely. They do not look like they are suffering, she observed dryly. They do not know any better, Vemthrax insisted. They need our help whether they realize it or not. The vote was swift. 43 in favor of immediate contact and relief efforts. 3 opposed. 1 abstention from a counselor who had fallen asleep. Thus began the most overprepared first contact mission in galactic history. The diplomatic vessel Harmonious Convergence was outfitted with enough medical supplies to treat every known disease in the galaxy twice over. The cargo hold contained prefabricated habitats rated for Class 3 worlds, portable atmosphere generators, and enough nutritional supplements to feed a small moon. The delegation's personal preparations were even more extreme. This is unnecessary, Professor Quilmera said, watching the team don their protective suits in the staging area. Unnecessary? Ambassador Ryloth sealed his helmet with shaking manipulators. Professor, we are about to land on a world where the air can burn, the water falls from the sky like weapons, and the ground moves. I am wearing 6 layers of protection and I still feel naked. The suits were engineering marvels. Radiation shielding, atmospheric filters, temperature regulation, impact resistance, and a medical monitoring system that would automatically inject 17 different antidotes at the first sign of poisoning. The delegation looked like they were preparing to explore the interior of a star, not make a diplomatic visit. What if the gravity is too much? Asked junior diplomat Fex, testing the suit's exoskeleton supports. What if their microbes are hostile? Added cultural liaison Morp. What if the planet just decides to explode while we are there? Fex again, now working himself into a proper panic. The planet is not going to explode, Quilmera said tiredly. You do not know that. The Harmonious Convergence entered Earth's star system a week later. Every sensor was active. Every shield was at maximum. The crew monitored their approach with the intensity of soldiers entering a war zone. Entering orbit around the target planet, the pilot announced, her voice tight. May the cosmic forces have mercy on us all. Through the viewports, Earth rotated below them. Blue oceans, green continents, white clouds swirling in those terrifying weather patterns. It looked almost peaceful. Professor Quilmera knew better than to trust appearances. After all, the universe's most dangerous things were often the most beautiful. Prepare landing coordinates, she ordered. And somebody tell Ambassador Ryloth to stop hyperventilating into his helmet. We are going to need him conscious for this. The Harmonious Convergence landed in a carefully selected clearing in what humans called Central Park, New York City. The location had been chosen for its relative safety, which in this case meant only moderately lethal, rather than immediately fatal. The landing ramp descended with a hydraulic hiss. Ambassador Ryloth took point, followed by Professor Quilmera and the rest of the delegation, all encased in their protective suits like the galaxy's most paranoid astronauts. What they found waiting for them made Ryloth's primary heart skip several beats. The human delegation stood casually on the grass, wearing what the database identified as business casual attire. Thin fabric coverings. No helmets. No radiation shielding. No atmospheric filtration. One human female in the front was actually wearing open-toed shoes, her unprotected feet just resting on the potentially contaminated ground. "Welcome to Earth," the female said, smiling. Her teeth were visible. The Galactic Council's psychological profiles had not prepared Ryloth for the teeth. "I am Ambassador Jennifer Wu. On behalf of humanity, we are absolutely thrilled to meet you." Ryloth tried to speak, failed, and tried again. "You are outside," he managed through his suit's translator. "Unprotected. Are you not concerned about the radiation? The atmospheric toxins? The microbial hazards?" Wu's smile faltered slightly. "I am sorry, what?" "Your suits," Fex interjected, waving frantically at the human's clothing. "Where are your protective suits? Do you need medical assistance?" "We brought extensive medical supplies." The humans exchanged confused glances. "These are our suits," Wu said slowly, gesturing to her blazer and slacks. "Business suits. For formal occasions. Is there a dress code issue we were not informed about?" Professor Quilmera stepped forward, her scientific curiosity overriding her survival instincts. "Ambassador Wu, you are standing in direct sunlight. Your star emits dangerous levels of ultraviolet radiation. Do you not feel the burning?" "Oh, the sun." Wu looked up at the sky with an expression that could only be described as fondness. "It is a beautiful day, is not it? We got lucky with the weather. It was supposed to rain." "Rain," Ryloth whispered. "The water bombardment. You speak of it as though it is routine." "Well, it is routine. It is just rain." Wu was clearly trying to be helpful, but every word made the situation worse. "We get precipitation several times a week this time of year. Good for the plants." Cultural liaison Mort made a strangled sound and sat down heavily on the ramp. His medical monitor immediately began beeping. "Is he all right?" Wu asked, concerned. "He is experiencing acute psychological distress," Quilmera explained. "Perhaps we should move this discussion indoors? To a controlled environment?" "Absolutely. We have a reception prepared at the UN building. It is just a short walk." "Walk?" Ryloth's voice rose an octave. "Through the open environment? Could we not transport in a sealed vehicle?" "I mean, we could, but it is only 4 blocks. Lovely day for a stroll." The walk took 20 minutes and aged Ryloth approximately 10 years. Humans were everywhere, moving through the deadly environment like it was nothing. Children played in a designated area, running and screaming with joy while breathing the combustible atmosphere. An elderly human sat on a bench feeding small avian creatures that could presumably carry any number of diseases. Inside the UN building, the temperature was controlled but still horrifyingly warm by council standards. The human delegation had prepared refreshments, which Ambassador Ryloth eyed with deep suspicion. "Please, help yourselves," Wu said, gesturing to a table laden with food and beverages. "We were not sure what you might enjoy, so we provided variety." Professor Quilmera scanned one of the items. "This contains capsaicin, a chemical irritant used as a defensive toxin by certain plant species." "Oh, the salsa." "Yes, it is a bit spicy," Wu agreed cheerfully. "We can get you the mild version if you prefer." "You eat poison," Quilmera said flatly. "For pleasure." "Well, I would not call it poison exactly. It just activates your pain receptors a little bit. Adds flavor." Ryloth removed his helmet with trembling manipulators, deciding that if he was going to die on this planet, he might as well breathe its air directly. Ambassador Wu, I must ask. Do you understand that your planet is classified as a Class 12 hazard world? That its conditions should be incompatible with complex life? Wu blinked. I am sorry, what? Earth is a Class 12 what now? Your gravity, your radiation levels, your atmospheric volatility, your tectonic instability, Ryloth counted off on his manipulators. Not to mention your weather patterns, your predatory fauna, and your toxic flora. By all known standards, your planet should be uninhabitable. Huh. Wu considered this. I mean, Earth can be a bit rough around the edges, I guess. We have natural disasters, sure. Earthquakes, hurricanes, the occasional volcanic eruption. But that is just part of living here. You adapt. Adapt, Quilmera repeated, her scientific interest fully engaged now. Tell me, what do humans do for recreation? Wu brightened. Oh, tons of things. We have sports like football, basketball, hockey. Some people enjoy hiking, rock climbing, skiing. Personally, I like skydiving. Skydiving? You jump out of aircraft at high altitude and freefall before deploying a parachute. The adrenaline rush is incredible. Fex fainted. His suit's medical system caught him before he hit the floor. You jump out of functioning aircraft, Ryloth said, each word carefully measured, intentionally. For fun, Wu added helpfully. And people keep these as companions, Quilmera said, pulling up the database entry on Earth's domesticated animals. Canines. Genus Canis. Descended from apex predators. Dogs. Oh, they are wonderful. So loyal and loving. Wu pulled out a communication device and showed them images of a large German shepherd. This is my dog, Rex. He is a sweetheart. The image showed a creature with prominent fangs and powerful jaws. That animal could kill you, Quilmera observed. Rex? No, he is a big baby. Though I guess he could be intimidating to strangers. He is very protective. You keep predators in your dwelling spaces as protection, Ryloth said, his worldview crumbling in real time. And companionship. They are called man's best friend for a reason. Ambassador Wu was still trying to be reassuring, still smiling with those alarming teeth, completely unaware that every word out of her mouth was systematically destroying the Galactic Council's understanding of acceptable living conditions. Professor Quilmera sat down, removed her own helmet, and breathed Earth's oxygen-rich air for the first time. It was time to accept the truth: humans were not suffering on their death world, they were thriving on it, and they had absolutely no idea how terrifying that was. Ambassador Wu, in her infinite optimism and complete misunderstanding of the situation, decided the best way to help the aliens feel comfortable was to show them normal human life. Normal, she kept saying. As if anything about this planet qualified as normal. We have prepared a cultural exchange program, Wu announced brightly. We thought you might enjoy experiencing some typical human activities. Ryloth wanted to flee back to the ship. Professor Quilmera, however, was taking notes with the obsessive focus of a scientist who had found something genuinely unprecedented. Please, continue, she said. The first activity was lunch. The dining hall had been set up with what Wu described as a variety of international cuisines. The aliens approached the buffet table like it was an unexploded ordnance. This is Thai curry, Wu explained, ladling a vibrant red sauce onto a plate. A bit spicy, but delicious. And here we have Mexican tacos, Indian vindaloo, Szechuan hot pot. Why is everything described as spicy? Ryloth asked suspiciously. Oh, that just means it contains chili peppers. They add heat and flavor. Quilmera scanned the curry. Her device immediately began screaming warnings. Ambassador Wu, this dish contains concentrated capsaicin levels that would classify as a chemical weapon on 14 council worlds. Really? Huh. I just had this yesterday. Thought it was pretty mild, actually. Against his better judgment, Ryloth tried a small sample of what Wu promised was very mild salsa. The burning sensation was immediate and catastrophic. His 3 tongues felt like they had been set on fire, which, chemically speaking, they essentially had been. Water, he gasped. Oh no, water makes it worse. Here, try milk. You have an antidote prepared? Ryloth seized the glass desperately. It is not an antidote, it is just milk. The fat helps with the burning. The burning that you intentionally inflict upon yourselves, Quilmera observed, watching several human staff members cheerfully consuming the weaponized curry. Multiple times per day. Well, yeah. Food would be boring without a little kick to it. The next portion of the cultural exchange involved meeting human companion animals. Wu brought them to what she called a dog park, which turned out to be an enclosed area where humans released their domesticated predators to socialize. A golden retriever bounded up to the group, tail wagging, tongue lolling. Fex screamed and dove behind Ryloth. This is Buddy, said the dog's owner, an elderly human who seemed unbothered by the beast's proximity. He is very friendly. You can pet him if you like. Pet? Ryloth stared at the creature's teeth. You mean touch the predator? He is not a predator, he is a golden retriever. Sweetest breed there is. Buddy barked, a sound that made half the delegation reach for their emergency beacons. His owner laughed and scratched behind his ears. The creature's eyes closed in apparent bliss, one leg thumping against the ground. Humans have selectively bred apex predators for docility and companionship, Quilmera murmured, recording everything. Remarkable. A cat wandered over, regarding the aliens with the disdain only a feline can muster. It rubbed against Quilmera's leg, and she froze. That one also contains lethal capabilities, she said, eyeing the cat's retractable claws. That is Whiskers. She is a sweetheart, but yeah, she can be a bit scratchy if you pet her wrong. If you pet her incorrectly, she attacks? I mean, she might swat at you. It is just cat behavior. You keep animals that attack you when displeased. They do not really attack, they just have boundaries. You learn to respect them. The entertainment portion of the exchange proved equally disturbing. Wu showed them clips from human films. An action movie where the protagonist jumped between buildings, fought multiple opponents, and survived explosions. A horror film where humans paid money to be frightened by fictional scenarios. A nature documentary where a human swam alongside great white sharks. That human is in the water with an apex predator, Ryloth said, pointing at the screen. That is just research. Marine biologists do it all the time. For science? Well, some do it for science. Some people do it for fun. Shark cage diving is a popular tourist activity. Tourist activity, Quilmera repeated slowly. Humans pay currency to be submerged in water with creatures that could consume them. The cages are very safe. Mostly. Wu pulled up more examples, each one worse than the last. Humans jumping off bridges with elastic cords attached to their ankles. Humans throwing themselves out of aircraft. Humans climbing vertical rock faces with minimal safety equipment. Humans skiing down mountains at velocities that could be fatal. Humans surfing waves that could crush them. Humans running with bulls. Humans cave diving. Humans base jumping. Why? Ryloth finally asked, his voice breaking. Why do you do these things? Wu looked confused. Because they are fun. The adrenaline rush, the challenge, the sense of accomplishment. Humans like pushing boundaries. But you could die. I mean, you could die doing anything. At least these activities make you feel alive. Quilmera pulled up historical records. It says here that a human named George Mallory attempted to climb Mount Everest, your planet's highest peak, in atmospheric conditions that should have caused hypoxia and death. When asked why, he responded, because it is there. That sounds like George, Wu said fondly, as if she personally knew a man who died a century ago attempting something suicidal for no practical reason. Your species climbs mountains because they exist, Ryloth said flatly. Among other reasons, sure. You jump out of aircraft for entertainment. Skydiving is very popular. You swim with predators. Sharks are mostly harmless if you respect them. You consume chemical weapons as food seasoning. Everything tastes better with a little spice. Ryloth sat down on a nearby bench, his protective suit creaking. Your entire species is insane. We prefer the term adventurous, Wu said cheerfully. Professor Quilmora was scribbling notes frantically. Ambassador Wu, do all humans engage in these risk-seeking behaviors? Not everyone, but a lot of people enjoy some form of thrill-seeking. Roller coasters, extreme sports, horror movies, spicy food. We like excitement. You actively seek out experiences that trigger your fear and pain responses. When you put it that way, it sounds weird. Because it is weird. Ryloth exploded. It is the weirdest thing I have encountered in 40 years of diplomatic service. You live on a planet that is actively trying to kill you, and instead of trying to escape or at least minimize risk, you invented new ways to almost die for recreation. Wu finally seemed to understand that the aliens were genuinely distressed. Look, I think there has been a misunderstanding. Earth is not trying to kill us. It is just our home. Sure, it has challenges, but that is what makes life interesting. Humanity did not survive this long by playing it safe. We adapted, we thrived, and yeah, we learned to enjoy the ride. She smiled again, and Ryloth realized something terrifying. She actually meant it. That evening, back aboard the Harmonious Convergence, the delegation held an emergency debriefing. Fex was still recovering in the medical bay after trying a jalapeno pepper. Morp had not spoken since witnessing a human child gleefully petting a snake at the zoo. They are not victims, Professor Quilmora said, breaking the stunned silence. They are victors. Ryloth slumped in his chair, having removed his protective suit for the last time. If Earth's atmosphere had not killed him by now, it probably would not. Probably. Explain. We approached this situation with the assumption that Earth was hostile to life. We were correct. What we failed to understand was that humans are not fragile beings struggling to survive on a death world. They are the death world's natural product. Earth did not break them. It forged them. They eat poison for fun, Fex called weakly from medical. Because their evolution demanded adaptation to diverse food sources, Quilmora continued. Their pursuit of dangerous activities? Risk assessment and physical prowess selected over millions of years. Their domestication of predators? Evidence of a species that sees apex predators and thinks friend instead of a threat. Earth did not make humans tough. Humans made Earth livable. Ryloth pulled up the data humans had shared about their space program. His blood ran cold for the third time this month, which had to be a personal record. They are planning to expand, he said quietly. What? Their space exploration initiatives. They have already sent members of their species to their moon. They are planning missions to their neighboring planet, Mars. And these are just the preliminary steps. He zoomed in on a document titled, Long-Term Space Colonization Goals. They want to terraform worlds. Make them Earth-like. The implications hung in the air like a toxic cloud. They want to make more Earths, Quilmora whispered. They want to spread, Ryloth continued, scrolling through humanity's ambitious plans. Establish colonies. Create sustainable habitats in environments we would consider uninhabitable. They look at the vacuum of space and see opportunity. Of course they do, Quilmora said, a note of hysteria creeping into her voice. They jump out of aircraft for entertainment. Space is probably relaxing by comparison. The communication panel chimed. The Galactic Council was requesting an immediate report. Ryloth activated the holographic display. Counselor Vemthrax appeared, tentacles writhing anxiously. Ambassador Ryloth, what is your assessment? Do the humans require rescue? No, Counselor. Relocation assistance? No, Counselor. Medical intervention? Psychological support? Emergency relief? Counselor, Ryloth said carefully, the humans are fine. Better than fine. They are thriving on a Class 12 hazard world and they consider it normal. Moreover, they are planning to expand into space. They want to explore. Colonize. Terraform. Silence from the council chamber. Counselor Vemthrax, I am recommending we update Earth's classification. To what? Ryloth glanced at Quilmera, who nodded gravely. Class Omega. Sentient species originated from extreme environment. Unpredictable capabilities. Approach with caution and respect. You are saying the humans are dangerous? I am saying, Counselor, that they are a species that evolved on a planet where everything was trying to kill them, and they responded by developing persistence hunting, endurance running, and the ability to survive in every climate zone their planet offers. They sweat to regulate temperature, which is apparently unique among their planet's large fauna. They can throw objects with lethal accuracy. They have binocular vision and pattern recognition that borders on precognition. And they think all of this is normal. Professor Quilmera leaned into the frame. Counselor, humans are pursuit predators. They chase their prey until it collapses from exhaustion. They are one of the only species on their planet capable of this. Now imagine that capability, that relentlessness, that adaptability, applied to space exploration. Another long silence. I will convene an emergency council session, Vemthrax said finally. In the meantime, maintain diplomatic relations. An ambassador? Yes, Counselor. Do not let them know we are frightened. The transmission ended. Ryloth looked at his team, at the planet rotating peacefully below them, at the lights of human cities spreading across the continents like a gentle rash. They are going to join the galactic community, he said. Stars help us all, Quilmera replied.